David Kahn is former leader of the Alberta Liberal Party. David, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Wyatt.
The race to become the next leader of the United Conservative Party in Alberta has obviously been a hotly contested race with Danielle Smith, most recently talk show host, but also former Wild Rose leader, running to replace Jason Kenney and to be Jason Kenney's successor as not only the next leader of the United Conservative Party, but as the next premier as well. What do you make of how the race has transpired thus far?
Well, from my point of view, it's been pretty low key. There hasn't been a whole lot of controversies other than Miss Smith's Alberta Sovereignty Act, which I'm sure we can get into. That has drawn criticism from most of the other candidates in the leadership, as well as Mr. Kenney, and of course, many of us lawyers, and especially constitutional lawyers, that think it's going to be a ridiculous act to pass.
And what do you make of some of the other candidates in this race? Obviously, Travis Toews, someone very close with the premier. The general consensus seems to be that Travis Toews would be the candidate to kind of continue on that legacy of Premier Kenney and continue to deliver on some of the things that Premier Kenney's administration was trying to do. But looking even at some of the candidates who maybe aren't expected to do as well, looking at Leela here, Rajan Sawhney, lots of those types of people in this race. What do you make of that in particular?
Well, I think the two, Miss Sawhney and Miss Ahir, that you've named are from the sort of progressive side of the Conservative Party, if there's that side left. So that they've been trying to be a bit more progressive and reach out to more middle of the road voters, and realizing, I think rightly so, that whoever becomes leader is going to have to vastly expand their base, which Miss Smith is not doing. She's playing to the sort of sovereignists and the far right anti-vaxxers and the convoy people, that kind of thing. Mr. Toews, being tied to Mr. Kenney being finance minister and Mr. Kenney's government, I think that's going to weigh him down amongst these more activist and far right base in the UCP, which they seem to hold sway and seem to have more numbers and be more motivated. So I think he's going to have trouble beating Miss Smith, especially on the first ballot. Mr. Brian Jean, he used to be an MLA and leader of the Wild Rose Party. He decided not to run again after Mr. Kenney beat him for the UCP leadership. He initially would have been a very strong candidate, but my view is he's not run a very strong campaign, and I don't think he's really been out there. So I'm not sure. I very much doubt that he has the momentum and the voters to beat Danielle Smith.
And what about the issues that the various candidates have been talking about in this campaign? What do you make of, the issues that have taken the spotlight?
Well, I don't think enough has been focused on the real issues that the wider electorate, i.e. all the rest of Albertans that aren't voting the 3.5% that don't, more than the 3.5% that can vote in the UCP leadership race. So I think the actual concerns of Albertans, inflation, healthcare crisis, not enough funding for education, the environment, and things like coal mining that most Albertans are against. I think that really most of those really haven't been discussed enough in this leadership race. And mostly the candidates have been reacting to Miss Smith's kind of far right sovereignty talk, or they've been pushing an anti-Ottawa rhetoric too. I think Mr. Toews has been trying to do that to some degree. But yeah, I just don't think the wider electorate of Albertans would be reflected in what is being discussed in this race.
Okay, former Alberta Liberal leader David Kahn. David, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Wyatt. Thanks for having me on.